All throughout the world, you can find many different types of roller coasters. They can differ in a number of categories, from manufacturers to models, but some of them stand out over the rest as being completely different. They're the kind of coasters that you look at and just go, what? Today, I will be sharing the 10 coasters that I find to be the most interesting. Please note before I start though, that this is not a bucket list or anticipation list, and the coasters will be ranked in no specific order. Now that you know that, let's jump right in with Intimidator 305 at Kings Dominion in Doswell, Virginia. This beast is an Intamin Giga Coaster themed to NASCAR racer Dale Earnhardt Jr., and it looks like a very, very good ride. The defining feature of this massive coaster, though, is the level of intensity it exerts on its riders. The first turn is said by many to be the most intense moment on any coaster ever, period. It's not surprising that this is the case, as the turn is taken at full speed right after the drop at 90 miles an hour, and it is very sustained. Throughout the rest of the ride layout, you traverse more intense turns and some of the whippiest looking transitions known to man. I have no idea how it would feel with that much force being exerted on your body, as the most intense coaster experience I have is the back row of Mr. Freeze at my home park. I don't know if I'll end up liking this coaster or not, but either way I have to know what that feels like. Next is a coaster that somehow manages to stay hanging despite being constantly held upside down. Welcome to the land down under, home of the Muck Rides Hypercoaster DC Rivals Hypercoaster. While it obviously doesn't actually hang upside down, this coaster still looks wild. But is that wild enough to crack this list? Actually, no. That may sound weird since it is literally on the list, but the reason I say no is because of the little feature that this purple giant has. That feature is that the back row is actually flipped around so that you face backwards while going around the insane circuit. This means that on Rivals, you can get ejector airtime and intensity of the back row, which already looks amazing, but this time it has the added thrill of being backwards. The coaster traverses many crazy looking elements, ranging from stangle dives to whippy transitions to a non-inverting loop rumored to pull -2 Gs. Whether that's true or not is up for debate, but what's not is for how great this ride is, and facing what would normally be the wrong way adds to it that much more. So alone, DC Rivals may not be quite enough for this list, but with that backwards seat, it easily earns its spot. You might think I've gone crazy when you see my next pick, but I ask you to listen before you make a hate comment or something of that sort. A park that I have no chance at pronouncing has a crazy looking roller coaster that I'd be willing to bet some, or maybe even most of you have never heard of. This is Cobra. At first glance, the ride may seem boring, but then you watch a video of it, and wow, how in the world does this thing exist? The model of the coaster is an Interpark Wildwind, and it is not okay. You slowly roll out of the station and up the lift hill before the drop. Nothing too special. But then comes the first element, an element that is like none other. It is stupidly tight and no doubt exerts ridiculous G-forces on your body. The pullout is also seriously whippy. I have no idea what it would feel like to go through this element, but I have no doubts that it would either be awful or amazing. The ride after that finishes with the triple helix into the brake run, so nothing too notable. But the element alone really makes me question if the designer of this ride was high while he made it, because there is no way a sane person creates something as messed up as this. Another fairly obscure coaster is next, and strangely enough, this one is designed by a well-known but not well-liked company, Mara Rides. The coaster I am talking about is Shock at Rainbow Magic Land. This is a launched version of the X-Car model, and it looks pretty crazy. Starting with some wacky, almost RMC-like turns before the launch, the coaster already is intriguing. Then you hit the launch, and it looks good, but nothing really to shout at. This takes you into a very large hill that probably gives some great airtime. Following this hill is the largest drop of the ride, before a very strange looking and also quite intense looking element, almost like a non-inverting inclined loop. Having been on a non-inverting loop, strangely enough also manufactured by Mar, I can say that this element probably has some great airtime. This is a pretty crazy ride already, but it gets better. Following the wacky non-inverting element is an overbank turn taken at an insane speed. Just watching it, I can feel my backside getting brutally pushed into the seat. If you can't tell that it's intense by seeing it though, look closer and there's more proof of its force. Yeah, the spine on this track of the turn is very thick, and if you know anything about roller coasters, then you'll know that more intense portions need a thicker spine to support the extra stress put on the track. Even if Mari's restraint system isn't the best, it can't hinder this intense moment. After this obvious highlight of the ride, the coaster finishes with a mid-course brake run, helix, and hang time-filled roll before the brakes. This is a very strange ride with a super intense looking moment, and so it is one that I hope to be able to get on one day. Dodonpa is an S&S air-launched coaster at Fuji-Q Highland in Japan. It has the highest rate of acceleration of any roller coaster in the world, going from 0 to 112 miles per hour in 1.6 seconds. For those of you who don't know anything about speed, that is an extremely high top speed and a ridiculous rate of acceleration. It is said that the only comparable event to this launch is being rear-ended by a semi-truck. The ride might be a bit lackluster as a whole, but the launch alone makes me extremely interested in this ride, because there is really no way to know exactly how it feels until you ride it. Dodonpa is about the only thing on Earth that can make you feel like a bullet shooting out of a gun, and boy does that sound great to me. Another coaster at Fuji-Q Highland, and also the American Dream Mall in New Jersey, is Takabisha/TMNT Shellraiser. These are the world's 2 steepest coasters, but they feature many great elements besides just drops. To start off the ride, there is a small drop into a roll surely packed with good hang time before the launch. And yes, that does mean that these rides feature both a launch and a lift hill, putting them among the few to do so. After this launch, which looks decently forceful, you go through a series of inverting elements. First is what RCDB says is a corkscrew, but to me almost looks like some kind of inverting top hat. Just not an inverting top hat. It's a strange element, but it looks to have some good hang time. Next is a banana roll, which is by far the most interesting element in the first section, at least in my opinion. It starts going up like it's going to be an Immelman or vertical loop, but then pulls out, almost like a Cobra roll. However, unlike a Cobra roll, it doesn't go down when it's not inverted. Instead, it goes up and makes its unique banana shape, before continuing back down in the same fashion that it went up. It looks quite whippy and fun, and who knows, it may even be intense. After this, you go through another inversion before a twisted airtime hill and into a brake run. This leads up into a huge vertical lift hill before a super steep drop. 121 and 121.5 degrees steep, to be exact. Yes, that makes these drops beyond vertical. The steepest drop I have personally been on is Mr. Freeze at 90 degrees, so it would be a brand new feeling to me to twist under yourself. It also looks like it may give some airtime, which would make it even better. The rest of the ride is pretty short with a few more inversions, but the drop and banana roll make me quite excited to hopefully get on one or both of the clones someday. One of the most unique and compact thrilling coaster models ever is the Togo Ultra Twister. There are quite a few clones of this model throughout the world, and there is even one with a dive loop instead of going backwards. These models are great looking rides, which is rare for Togo outside of Japan. They start with an insane looking vertical lift hill that I can't even begin to think of how it would feel to be on it. You start by tilting onto your back from an average sitting position, and from there you get very slowly pulled up. It is also in a small cage-like structure, so beware if you are claustrophobic. This may not be the ride for you. After the great vertical lift hill, you go down a fitting vertical drop that appears to give some crazy ejector airtime, as it kind of snaps into place, more than likely launching riders out of their seats. This leads into an ejector airtime hill, again launching everyone on board out of their seat. You then go through the first of the ride's main features, a heartline roll. It looks very smooth and enjoyable, and also quite intense. This is followed by either a pop-up into some brakes or a dive loop, depending on what model you are riding. But since there is only one of the latter, I'll talk about the backwards version mainly. You tilt backwards and drop into 2 more heartline rolls that don't appear as intense as the first one, but just as fun. After that, the ride ends. It may be short, but this is a very unique coaster model that is different from pretty much anything else, meaning the only way to know how it feels to ride it is, well, to ride it. Unfortunately, one no longer operates in America, so if you're an American nerd like me, you have to fly all the way across an ocean to get the credit. PAX is a very strange roller coaster manufacturing company. They make quite a few kinds of coasters, and they are all very unique and much different from any other company's models. This spot really belongs to all PAX coasters, but there are 2 that I want to highlight. These are Wild Train, a coaster that looks like it is made for kids until you watch a POV, and Cobra, a what the heck is this messed up kind of coaster. First, let's talk about Wild Train. What in the world is this thing? It has very weak stats with a height of only 50 feet and speeds of less than 30 miles an hour, but it looks insane! The valleys are incredibly tight, meaning the forces would be crazy, and all of the hills have such sharp angles that they seem like they should not be legal. It's so different from anything else that PAX doesn't even list it under a certain model. The thing looks like it absolutely yonks you out of your seat, shout out to Canada Coaster Fan, and everything about it is stupid yet incredible. I have no idea exactly what to expect, because coasters of this scale generally aren't good, but I know I want to ride this thing. The other PAX coaster that needs to be talked about is Cobra at Connieland in Switzerland. This is one of the coasters that I look at and just can't describe to myself. It goes up a beyond vertical backward spike and falls into 2 airtime hills before a loop. Strange, but not that unique or weird. It gets better though, because the world's first and only scorpion tail is up next. If you don't know what this element is, don't feel too bad, as most probably don't. Basically, you pull up as if it were a vertical loop, but instead of continuing around in a circle, you remain inverted and go out straight. It looks incredibly wonky, but also seems to have amazing hang time, and I'd love to know what it's like. There's absolutely nothing I can think of that is comparable, so it easily makes the cut for this list because of its uniqueness, and for that reason, I seriously want to ride these 2 coasters. The 9th coaster on this list is also 2 coasters, except unlike the last spot, these coasters are simply mirror images of each other. They have incredible pacing, and they are the RMC Raptors. These are compact coasters with just good stats, but oh my gosh do they look incredible. The airtime on both appears to be stupidly strong, and all of the elements are so tight that I have no doubt that they have a wild amount of positive G-forces. You whip through every element on these clones, all the way to the end of the ride, which is rare for some coasters. Generally, roller coasters will slow down a lot before the end of the ride, making their pacing worse. But the Raptors' pacing is total perfection. Even in footage of them crawling, a term used when a coaster is running slow, they still retain speed incredibly well. Because of their pacing, there's one final turn into the brakes that looks almost as intense as shocks. I am constantly amazed at the things the Raptors do and the speed at which they take the maneuvers. Flying into the brakes at full speed would be insane, so I feel like I need to get out and try one of the Raptors as soon as I can. Finally, we have made it to the number 1 spot, and this really is number 1. I know I said this wasn't really a ranking, and it wasn't up until now. That sounds contradicting, but it's because these 3 coasters, that all have the same general idea, are absolutely ridiculous. Yes, there are technically 3 coasters in this spot, but they are similar enough that it would have felt wrong to make multiple spots just for them. They are X2 at Six Flags Magic Mountain in California, Dinoconda at Dinosaurs Park in China, and finally the grand beast of them, Ijunaika at Fuji-Q Highland in Japan. And yes, that does mean Fuji-Q has 3 coasters on this list. Maybe I should plan a trip to Japan. Anyway, these 3 massive, hyper 4D coasters are all insane. Even if the flips are controlled, they are done so perfectly. The drops on the coasters are near vertical, and they do a flip at the insanely intense looking bottom of said drop. Dinoconda and Ijunaika have 14 seat rotations during the ride, and all of them are no doubt crazy. Adding on to the already wild experience is the wing seat experience. All 3 coasters sit you to the side of the track, meaning you are dangling out to the side as your body gets flung around like a rag doll. These are my most anticipated coasters, the most interesting coasters to me, and I honestly think that Ijunaika and Dinoconda are the best coasters in the entire world, meaning that they easily deserve the top spot of my list because they are the ultimate example of a WTH coaster. That's it for the 10 most interesting coasters in the world, in my opinion. If you enjoyed, please consider subscribing, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.